As a seventh grade English teacher at LaPine Middle School for 5 years, and this would have been my 7th year as a teacher with the Bend-LaPine School District. I grew up in Bend and am actually a graduate of the Bend-LaPine schools, Kenwood, Juniper, Pilot Butte, and Mountain View. The experiences I had along the way were good ones, and the teachers I met were great ones. I even had Mr. Mark Schultz as my health teacher. Go Cougs. The teachers and coaches and experiences that I had as a student influenced my decision to become a teacher. I am proud to have had the opportunity to even teach alongside some of those teachers I had so many years ago. In a community where many teachers don't last more than a couple of years, I decided to stay in LaPine because I knew that students need consistent and reliable relationships to be successful in their academic pursuits, especially those with high levels of trauma and low socioeconomic standing, of which the majority of students in LaPine are categorized. I drove from Bend to LaPine and back every day because I knew that I could make a difference in those students' lives by demonstrating the love of Jesus. After a challenging first year filled with many ups and downs, I decided to help revive the old cross-country ski team. As a non-paid volunteer head coach, let me say that again, a non-paid volunteer head coach, I gave up my evenings and weekends to provide 8th grade and high school students an after-school program that would keep them active, keep them out of trouble, and keep them warm throughout the long, snowy winter. With the help of Mountain View ski team leaders Eric, Bill, and Ginny Martin, and Sarah Swaney, longtime LaPine teacher Darren Vom Stieg, my assistant coach, Jerry Mayer, and a host of parent volunteers led by Andy and Heather Mewson, we grew the team from 8 athletes to 16 over 3 seasons. And the team was set to grow before I was put on unpaid leave last year. I don't bring these things up to impress you or to brag about my accomplishments. I bring them up because I want you to realize that your decision here tonight affects more than just me and my own family. The decision to put me on unpaid leave has already affected my students and their families. My colleagues have told me about the behavior issues that many of my students displayed after I was told not to return to the school building. I have heard of the frustration, even to the point of resignation, that replacement and substitute teachers have experienced since I've been gone. I have athletes who are saying they're not going to ski this winter if I don't come back to coach. Now you might say, then just sign the paper. Just submit your religious exception, but I'm going to tell you why I will not do that. When Kate Brown announced that healthcare and school employees would be forced to show proof of vaccination or submit a religious or medical exception form, I knew right then I could not comply. The decision I made to defy this mandate was never about the vaccine. I'm not against the vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not opposed to people choosing to receive the vaccine. I, however, did not believe the vaccine was the right choice for me. So my only other option would be to submit a religious exception form. The only problem is I don't have a religious conviction against this vaccine. When a few of us first met with Superintendent Steve Cook, he told us, just sign the form. It's the lowest bar to keep your job. It went on further that all religious exceptions would be accepted regardless of sincerity. I even received an email that told me my religious exception form had been accepted before I even submitted it. So clearly, the exception forms were just a hoop to jump through and an act to appease the government's demands. For these reasons and others, I decided not to submit any documentation. If the convictions of those who serve God with their whole heart were going to be lumped in with insincere lies, then I didn't want to play the game. My decision was never about the vaccine. It was about the right and the freedom we have in this country to choose what is best for ourselves. This country was founded on our God-given rights to choose, to govern ourselves, not to be pushed around by an individual or an institution. If we allow the officials of our government, our health facilities, our schools to impose policies such as this mandate, we risk losing far more rights in the long term. Our own president has repeatedly mocked our right to choose, calling us super spreaders, deeming the situation a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Think about that for a moment. The President of the United States, who contracted COVID while being double boosted, using our freedom as a punchline. This world and many of its leaders are under the sway of the wicked one and are in direct opposition to my Lord and my Savior, Jesus Christ. It's inevitable that our religious freedom and our freedom of speech will one day be lost. But tonight, given this opportunity, I will stand for Jesus, the Savior of this world and the provider of all freedoms. Most importantly, freedom from sin. What I'm opposed to is the state or the governor or OHA or the school district or any other man-made entity giving me an ultimatum. God is my ultimate authority, and I am opposed to a state and its leaders exploiting an emergency situation for more power and gain. I'm opposed to OHA instituting a ruling that says I have to submit personal documentation to continue my career as a teacher. I'm opposed to a governor who doesn't even value the life of an unborn child, telling me that I need to look out for the health and safety of my fellow man. And I'm opposed to a school district that preaches tolerance and equity and non-bias, discriminating against its own employees. To set the record straight, I didn't constructively abandon my job. I was told to turn in my keys, turn in my computer, and not to report to the school building on October 18th. After being placed on unpaid leave, I expected to be terminated February 20th. That day came and went, and I didn't receive a single form of communication from the school district. It wasn't until I asked for a meeting that I was brought in to talk about my employment standing. And others in the, and no, I did not request to be terminated in that meeting. I asked why the same standards that I was being held to were not enforced on others in the building after October 18th. They said, we're not in the business of policing OHA regulations beyond that original mandate. The emergency authority that Governor Kate Brown used to put regulations on us as citizens has expired. Deaths, cases, hospitalizations, whatever metrics you want to use are down and have hardly been looked at over the recent months. We know that vaccinated individuals are just as likely to spread the virus as those who are not. Federal mandates have been repealed after litigation and legal opposition. Many states across the country have lifted employment restrictions, and the CDC and other health officials have said it's time to learn to live with COVID and treat vaccinated and unvaccinated the same. If you still believe this mandate is necessary and effective now that a full year has gone by since I was put on unpaid leave, then approve this recommendation. But if you don't think it necessary, then I urge you to deny this recommendation for termination. In light of what we have learned regarding COVID vaccines, you must deny this recommendation. Federal health officials have emphasized a focus on individuals making their own choices on how to evaluate and mitigate their own risks. In light of the school district's handling of the statewide mandate, you must deny this recommendation. Exception forms lacking sincerely held religious beliefs were accepted with the rubber stamp, regardless of sincerity. Last winter and spring, employees that signed the attestation forms under law were no longer testing or wearing masks. Volunteers, coaches, contractors, other visitors were not being required to submit proper documentation. In light of the shortage of school staff in our district and across the state, you must deny this recommendation. Schools across the state are looking for qualified staff members. I am one of those qualified staff members that you're looking for. I'm a staff member who loves my students and cares about each of them as individuals. I'm a staff member with the same heart as those champions for students you so often congratulate in this very boardroom. I am one of the minority of staff members who showed your so-called thriving citizens what happens when you stand for freedom in a society that has given up their God-given rights to tyranny. May my students learn this lesson and stand for the rights they still have. Should you approve this recommendation, those of us being wrongfully terminated will appeal to the Fair Dismissal Appeals Board. Thank you.